So it's day number 2 on my or second time I've brewed. I brewed 2 days ago. So I'm gonna go ahead and brew again today. I'm just doing 10 pounds of 2-row and half a pound of Crystal 20 for just doing a blonde ale. So what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna see what the temperatures really are, or how this thing really keeps temperatures, or how well you can maintain a temperature. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to mix in. I just woke up, and it's heated up, which is always nice. So it's ready to go. So basically, what I am going to do today is I'm going to take temperature. I'm going to stir and take temperature readings like every 10 minutes, and I want to see what the temperature of the grains are for the entire mash, not just 2 or 3 times. So. And then I'm also going to do a mash out. I'm going to see how well it can do, raise it from 150 to 170 before I start my sparge. I usually don't do that, but there's been some people asking, or kind of wondering, and myself too, how well it could do a step mash. So that's going to kind of replicate, at least 20 degrees. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. That's pretty much all this video is going to focus on, is how this thing holds a mash and how it does a step mash. So, alright, well, we will, let's get into it. I'm not going to show the mixing or anything like that, but I am going to show all my temperature readings. So it's probably just going to be a lot of footage of looking at thermometers. So if you're not interested in looking at thermometers, then click away now. Alright guys, see ya. So I just mashed in. I am doing 4.5 gallons of water for 10 pounds of grains, which comes out to 1.8 pounds per, is it quart or pounds per liter? Anyways, so this would be considered a pretty thin mash. Again, because there's a little bit of water here on the edges, or a little bit of liquid here on the edges, so it's not all in the mash. So it is a little bit thin, but it's kind of how I like it. Oh, look at that! Look who made a return, you fucking asshole. Ooh, good for you, cat. So let's go ahead and take a temperature reading. I mashed in at 163, I believe. Let's see here, 153, 154, 153. Okay. Perfect. I have the mash right now set at 155, so if you hadn't watched my other videos, it has a 6-degree range difference here for the mash. So what it'll do is it'll heat up the water until it hits 155, and then the elements will turn off until it hits 149, and then that's when the elements will kick back on. So what this will try to do is keep the liquid between 155 and 149. And so what that kind of does is, I think I explained in my other video, but if you hadn't watched that one, there's probably a half an inch to an inch of just liquid that surrounds my my mash pot here, and again on the bottom. So what it's doing is it's keeping really that liquid around my mash in that temperature range, so it'll swing up and down. So what that does is it never lets my mash get, or what my theory is that my mash will stay right between 152 and 154 the whole time, even though the temperature reading on here is going to say, it'll kind of overheat sometimes. It'll say, it'll stop at 155, but then it kind of goes up to 160, the temperature does. So it does have a pretty big swing, but it's my theory that even with that swing, the mash will still be really consistent. So yeah, we're still reading 154. So that's the temperature of the mash. Give it a good stir. So yeah, I plan to take like 5 or 6 readings on this. I actually probably won't show that. It's pretty boring. But I'm going to come back with a few numbers written down at times. Just kind of showing exactly. So what I'll do is I'll stir the mash up really, really good and take a temperature reading. And I think that's what you have to do with this system. I don't think it's a set and forget like some of the other electric brewing, or like your cooler, let's say. I think if you really want to be precise, you want to stir it, because again the heat's coming from the outside edge. So you don't want, I mean, if you want a consistent mash, you don't want the edges to get hotter than the middle. So you want to stir it. So, yep, still reading 154. So that's what we'll do. I'll come back and tell you guys all the temperatures of the mash and how well it held a mash. And then I'll raise the mash temperature and a mash out, which I normally don't do since I've always used a cooler. I usually don't do a mash out in a traditional form like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long it takes to do a mash out from 154 to 170. So, alright, we'll come back here. Alright, it's been probably right at 12 minutes or so since we last saw each other. So what I'm going to do is, the temperature on the, so this is a good example, the temperature on the brewer's edge says 164. Let me make sure that, yeah, I did set that right. So it says 164 on the edge, so you might, you know, if you didn't really know what was going on, you might be kind of freaking out. But let's see what the, I haven't stirred this yet. I'm just kind of curious to see what the temperature on the outside edge is going to be. That's closest to the, so it still says 153 on the edge. Let's move to the middle. Oh, that's funny. Middle says 154. So on the edge, yeah, it's still saying 153 on the edge, 154 on the edge. Huh, okay. So apparently, and that's another thing too, that's the heat's going to dissipate and it's going to even itself out even in the mash. So even though the heat's coming from the outside here, it is going to dissipate. So let's just go ahead and stir it up and see what the temp is once I stir it up. And again, it's only been 10 minutes, 12 minutes since I last took a temperature and stirred it. So I normally wouldn't be this diligent on stirring the mash. I'd probably do it once or twice over a mash. But let's go ahead and just take another temperature reading to see just how it's holding temp. So without stirring, at least on the top layer, it was pretty evenly temp. But it's hard to tell what's going on in the bottom of the mash and stuff like that. You would think that the temperature would swing a little bit more down there. Let's get this thermometer reads temperatures really fast, but man, you gotta bang on it. There it goes. Okay, 154.4. Yep, 153.8. So after giving the mash a quick stir, it's still right around that 153, 154. Alright. Let's close it back up. I'll come back in about 20 minutes or so. So it's been exactly 30 minutes since I first dough'd in. Let's go ahead and take another reading here. The temperature on the mash and boil is saying that it's at 156. There it goes. So let's see here. On the outside edge, we're getting 154.5, 154.7, 155. So in the middle, it's at 154.2. And let's just do some kind of 153, 154, 152 right there, 152.9. Alright, let's give it a good stir. I think we kind of see a pretty good pattern going on here. Seems to be holding the mash perfectly. I'm really pleased with how it's doing. Give it a quick stir. Oh, I closed that, damn it. Okay.
154, 155, 156, okay. 155. So it did go up quite a little bit. So still happy with it. And we'll come back another 15. Alright. Only 15 minutes left in the mash. Let's see. Without stirring it and see what we got here on the edge. 153. 154 in the middle. That's strange. I'm getting hotter readings in the middle. And 153.5 again. So let's go ahead and give it a stir. Just kind of see how the temp evens out again. But so far, I mean, I think it's pretty clear the trend here. It's staying pretty much right where I want it to. In fact, I think I might even drop a degree or two. I think it tends to stay at the higher. I have it set for 155 and it's staying at 153 to 154. A little bit at 155. So I might next time drop it down. I mean, if you wanted to do a pale ale or if you wanted to mash at 150, drop down the temperature of the pot to 153. Seems to be holding pretty steady at 3 degrees below what you have it set for. 153, 153, 154, 155, yeah, or 154 again. So yeah, I think we're gonna call that done for as far as how it regulates temperatures. It's been for 45 minutes holding pretty right on, so I'm gonna come back. I've only got like 10-15 minutes left in the mash, so we'll come back and we'll start kind of raising the temperature on this thing and seeing if we can't get to 170, how long that takes. Obviously it will get to 170, but how long it'll take to do a mash out. So yeah, so we'll see. So just finished with the hour-long mash. Actually, an hour and 10 minutes probably. Again, the temperatures were 153, 154. So I'm going to bring it up to a mash out. So I had the temperature set to 173 on the brewer's edge, just so it can get to that 170 mark. Maybe a little bit faster. I did turn the element back on to the 1600 watt. For the mash, I had it on the 1000 watt setting, and that seemed to work out really well. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and see. I'll keep track here. I'll set a timer on my phone just to kind of see how fast it takes, but I'm expecting probably about 20 minutes. And on this one, I'm not going to show it, but I'll give you a time. I'm going to stay here pretty close by and just stir this every like 5 minutes, the mash. So, okay, let me set my timer here. Okay. And we're going. So, let's see how long it takes to raise it 15 to 20 degrees. So, alright guys. And so this is something worth noting too. I'm looking at it. So you're going to hear it cut off here in a second. Yeah, so the element's cut off. So what's happened is it's heated up the water from whatever it was to 170 quite fast. And so now the element's turned off. So a couple different ways to look at it, I guess. We could just set it and see how long it takes to get there. Or you can set it to, let's say, a boil and just constantly stir this until it gets to 170. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it like it is so I don't get it too hot as kind of a safety measure. It should never get too warm. So yeah, we'll kind of see. So it's saying I have it set to like 173, I believe, and it's saying 178 on the temperature, and that's because the water, there's only that much liquid on the bottom before it hits the the pipe here, the mash pipe. And so that's where it's taking its temperature from. So it's only that much liquid on the bottom, and then on the sides there's kind of like a protective thing. So it's going to heat that, and then that temperature has to go, diffuse into the mash before it'll turn back on. So yeah, I'm not sure what I want to do with it. I don't know if I should, and this is where you'd want to turn your pump on. If you were going to use a pump, this is where you would want to use it. I didn't really plan on that. Again, this is just kind of an experiment to see how long it will take. I'm going to give it 20 minutes. I'm not going to do anything different. I'm just going to raise the temperature to what I want it to be, and I'm going to leave it. So I'm going to give it 20 minutes. If it doesn't happen in 20 minutes, I'm just going to say, I'm just going to quit doing it. Because I do kind of want to, get this done at a decent time. So, yeah. Alright, well, I'll just kind of give this a stir every few minutes or so, just to get the temperature kind of spiked around. So, all right, I'll see you guys in 20 minutes. See what temperature we got up to. Okay, it's been 20 minutes. The heater really hasn't been on that much. So yeah, kind of what I thought was going to happen. It's just not gonna, without recirculating it or turning up the temperature on here to a boil, which I really didn't want to do. I didn't know. I mean, I think it would probably start to boil the wort around here, around your mash pipe. So that was just kind of So basically, long story short, let's see here. Let's see what the temperature is though before I start nay-naying it. But it's been exactly 20 minutes, and we're still at 154. 155. So the temperature of the mash really hasn't changed, and that's just because this outside water really just has been maintaining the temperature again. So if you were to do a step mash or anything like that in this, you would have to use a pump to recirculate the water that's heating up from the bottom up and back on top. So that's not a huge deal to me. I probably won't use a pump very much. The only time I would really like to use a pump, or maybe one reason to use a pump, would be to get the wort a little bit more clear. Brewing a bag just kind of tends to not have clear wort, just because material comes through. I don't really think that affects beer very much, or if at all. A lot of people do brew in a bag and with great results, so I'm not worried about it. I probably, for the most part, will not use a pump. It's just one more thing that can go wrong and stuff like that. So I don't ever really plan to use a pump. If I ever decided to do step mash, I would use one. So I might try it just to see, but yeah, for right now, we're just going to call this good. So yeah, so that's the video. My verdict is that this thing holds the temperature very, very well. No complaints there. As far as a step mash, not so good. 20 minutes, I really didn't get much of an increase in temperature at all. So if you're going to do a step mash, have to use a pump. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope that's helpful if you're thinking about getting one. I totally would, man. $300. It's hard to beat that. So, alright.